Welcome to Creatively by Estelle, a podcast for creative and performing artists. My name is Estelle Avberry, and I'm your host. Whether you're just starting or you're a pro, this show will help you feel inspired and motivated every single week along your creative journey, and will give you tactical tools and tips for fulfilling your creative goals and your God-given purpose as a creative person. You have gifts to give, so let's do this. Let's live creatively, and let's get into the episode. Hey, welcome back to the Creatively by Estelle podcast. This show is for you. If you are an aspiring creative, you want to be creative, especially in the performing arts, I'm so excited that you're here. Today, we're talking about something that is specifically for, something that I know that creatives really struggle with, and it was a question that I was asked recently in a Facebook group by another, aspiring creative who had been creative before. And one thing that she was talking about was struggling with this one thing that seems to hold her back, and that I know holds back a lot of creatives, and I know it's something that I've dealt with. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We are talking about 5 ways to combat and deal with imposter syndrome as a creative, as an aspiring creative. If you are ready to start your creative journey now, like you're tired of making excuses, you're tired of not having enough time, you know that you have creative gifts that you need to embrace and you need to actually work on and grow and share and put out into the world, right? That's what this podcast is for. And I know that imposter syndrome is something that keeps a lot of us stuck. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about how we can combat that. And if you know that you want to start your creative journey in the performing arts, specifically, you want to work on yourself as a vocalist, maybe you grew up singing in choirs, or you grew up loving music, loving musicals, loving performing, but you've gotten away from it a little bit, or you've always wanted to do it and you just never took the time, or you just never thought you could. I want to let you know that I'm doing beginner voice lessons and singing classes. So it's beginner level, so anyone's welcome, but especially if you're really new and you want to just get started, like you're tired of not being a creative and not being an artist and not using your gifts, and you want to get started singing, then that's what these lessons are for. I do private lessons specifically for you to work on your voice by yourself, right? We do, and everything is online. But I also am doing singing classes, so group coaching basically. And I have a membership that I've talked about, the Create Your Stage membership, that you can join, where you'll automatically be able to do the group singing classes twice a month. But I'm also offering now drop-in classes. So if you are I don't know about committing to an entire membership, but you just want to try a class out, then you can go ahead and try a class out. So go to www.creativelybyestelle.com/coaching to look into private beginner voice lessons. And then if you want to drop in on a class and maybe commit to the membership, then you can go to creativelybyestelle.com/sing for the membership information, and creativelybyestelle.com/class for just to see if you can do a drop-in class. So yeah, I'm really excited to be doing that. That way, if you are I want to be in a group atmosphere, I want to be able to be around other people who are aspiring to sing too and have that creative outlet, and it's all online as well. But maybe you're not sure if you want to commit to the monthly membership, you can do a drop-in class. So that's really fun. So yes, go to creativelybyestelle.com for all that information. You will not be sorry. We'll have so much fun, and you will finally be able to start your creative journey tactically with me as your biggest cheerleader. So there you go. Now, for today, I'm going to talk about 5 ways to combat imposter syndrome. This is just a quick episode to give you some really easy tactical tips that you can use starting today to fight against that imposter syndrome, because honestly, it's something that I know the enemy uses to hold us back as people, as God's creation, to hold us back from using the gifts that God has given us for his glory and for our good, for the good of other people. And I'm not okay with that. No more. Starting today, we're using our gifts 100%, 100,000%. So that's what we're here to do today, is to combat the imposter syndrome. So the first thing that I would say to come, like the first step, I guess, would be to be real with yourself, right? Which I think you're ready to do if you're listening to this right now. Be real with yourself. Be honest about what you're feeling. Why do you think you're feeling afraid or doubting yourself? Is it something that someone said in your past? Is it something that has happened? Like maybe you performed on stage one time and it didn't go well and now you have the stage fright. Like what is it? Get to the root of why you are feeling this imposter syndrome. Why are you really doubting yourself? Why do you think you're not good enough to start creating, to start your creative journey, to start singing, start dancing, start acting, start performing? What is it? Is it like what is it? It could be anything, right? So be real with yourself. Being honest with yourself from the beginning is something that I found really helps, because then you're like, oh, this is the root of this. And there could be multiple roots, right? There could be multiple reasons why you're feeling nervous or afraid or unsure of yourself, but at least you're being honest with yourself to start with, right? So that's the first thing I would say to combat it, is to be real with yourself, because it would be much easier to hide that and just push it down and be like, oh, I'm good, like I don't really care, like I'll be creative when I retire, whatever. Yeah, that's what the enemy would like you to say, because he doesn't want you to use your gifts. He really doesn't. And and I'm speaking as of course from the perspective of a person of faith, as a Christian, that I know that God wants you to use your gifts with 100% clarity. He wants you to, and not just wait until you're retired. Like starting today, because you don't know what tomorrow holds, right? So start using your gifts. So yeah, be real with yourself as to like why you're feeling that nervousness, why you're feeling that fear, and that's where it all starts. Okay. The second thing is to surrender. And this is a process that I went through for a long time. I mean, I continue to do this, but because I think that we all have to continue to combat these feelings because we are human. But I think before I really started embracing my creative gifts and singing and performing, and just like decided, you know what, I'm going to start taking dance classes, I'm going to start auditioning, I'm going to do this, and I'm really not going to sort of put aside my gifts for another time. I'm actually going to use them. It came after a time of surrender where I was journaling, I was spending time in the presence of God on my own, quiet time, having that quiet time. I'd been real with myself, and now I was handing over those fears to God. So really spend time in surrender, where you're journaling, where you're praying to God, you're giving him those fears that you have admitted to yourself in right in part 1. And now you're surrendering them to God and you're talking to God about them. And I genuinely believe that when you have a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, like all of these other things, all this fear, all these things that are holding you back, they don't have that power anymore, because you're connected with your God, with your Father, with the Creator who put those creative gifts in you, and He is not going to let them die in you, right? So surrender. Spend time surrendering those fears, surrendering those doubts to God. Spend time journaling, just writing it out and letting it all out, and not holding it in anymore. So, 1 and 2 are kind of connected, but those are the first 2 steps. So, the second step was surrender. Now, on to step number 3 to combat imposter syndrome is to check your circle. So, who are you surrounded with? Who are the people in your life who you look up to, who you want to be like? Are they people who are using their creative gifts fully? If not, why? Are they living in imposter syndrome, and are they not dealing with their imposter syndrome? Because then that might affect you if they're around you all the time and they are in your ears, right? So who are you surrounded by? Are there, books that you read? Are there podcasts that you listen to? Are there audiobooks you listen to that are encouraging you or discouraging you? You want to surround yourself with people who encourage you, and yes, challenge you in a good way too, to be better, to be the best you can be, to use your gifts. But you want to be surrounded by people who are really speaking life into you and who are supporting you and your gifts. That's something that, again, back to my story, helped me a lot a couple years ago when I just graduated college, and I was talking to just a couple really, really close friends who knew my giftings, had seen it in me, had seen me use them in small ways here and there. And we're like, yes, like keep doing it, keep pouring into it, keep growing in it. every time I would tell them, oh, I think I'm taking this dance class now, or I'm working on growing as a singer, like I'm doing this, I'm recording covers, they would be so encouraging. They would be so, supportive. And that really helped me feel like, okay, like it's okay. I'm not an imposter. I have giftings that I just need to work on. I just need to grow in. And so it was really encouraging to have those people. So check your circle, be surrounded with people, yes, and not just physical, not just like physically people and your friends and your family, but also like, what are you listening to? Are you listening to encouraging music, encouraging podcasts? Are you listening to this podcast? Hey, there you go. There you go. You've already completed number 3. But but actually though, like listen to encouraging, empowering podcasts and audiobooks, read books that are inspiring, right? You are in control of what you get to take in. So make sure that it's supportive, it's encouraging, it's empowering, and all of that. So check your circle. Who are you surrounded with? Okay, step number 4 is to assess what you have. Now we're getting into some really tactical things. Assess what you actually have. You've already figured out, you've been real with yourself, you know what you're feeling. Now you need to be real with yourself about what you have and the talents that you have, the gifts you have. What challenges have you overcome before where you were able to do something that was hard for you, that you were afraid about, that you felt imposter syndrome before, but you still did the thing, right? So assess what you have. What have you overcome before? Where have you used your natural gifts in the past, right? Are there some creative things that you've done before that actually went well? Were you in a high school play that you were, you did really well and you had a lot of fun and you got good feedback in, right? Were you in a choir? Did you get a solo, right? Even if it's like little things that are like, oh, I was just a kid back then or whatever. I don't care. You know, assess what you have. Did you take a dance class once, right? And it went well and you actually got the choreography down by the end of it? That's something that you have in your pocket, right? That's something that you have from your past that can at least encourage you that, okay, like I'm not starting completely from scratch. And even if you are truly a beginner, like you probably aren't, you probably have done at least something with your creative gifts, but even if you are, there are skills that you've acquired in other areas of your life that I'm sure you can apply to now starting your creative journey, right? If you maybe you did a great job with like writing papers and writing stories in high school or college, and now you're like, oh, I want to be an actor, I want to start acting. What does that have to do with that? Well, you're good at understanding how to communicate, you're good at telling stories, you're good at understanding characters. You can apply that to acting, right? So that's just an example, but assess what you actually have. Has there been something that you maybe overcame in the past in a completely different area in your school? You finished college or you did something that was hard, but by the end of it, you actually got through it, right? That's just an example to remind you that, oh, I have done hard things before. I can do another hard thing. I can do this, I can overcome this feeling of imposter syndrome in order to do what I love, in order to use the gifts God has given me, in order to be creative, in order to start singing, to start dancing, to start auditioning for plays, right? I can actually do it because I've done this other hard thing before. So yes, that's step 4 is assess what you have. So think, what do you actually have? And I would suggest writing them down. Like write down, I've done this, I accomplished this, I overcame this challenge before, I can do it again by the grace of God. I was singing before in this group in college. I can start singing again. I've done this, whatever it is. I would say write it down too, because that's like a little bonus step, because that way you always have that as a reminder to come back to whenever you face that imposter syndrome again. Okay? So step 4, assess what you have. And now we get to my favorite part, because you already know we've talked about this a lot. Step 5 is the most tactical of all the steps, which is to take one small step. Yes, honey, it's time to take action. I love taking small steps of action and encouraging people to do the same. So yes, think about one thing you can do, one little thing you can do to take a step towards using your creative gift today, not tomorrow. Okay, maybe let's just say this week, okay? But not next week, not next month, this week. Or today, if you're an overachiever. Love that for us. Love that for you. Right? What's one thing you can do to take a step towards using your creative gift? Can you sign up for a class? Can you watch a YouTube video? Can you follow a TikToker who dances and you can learn her choreography, I don't care what it is. It depends on what your creative journey is looking like and what you want to focus on. Speaking to performers, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with a singing class, with a voice lesson, right? Go to creativelybystyle.com/coaching. Let's go. Do you want to start with the dance class, right? An online class maybe you could be a free one on YouTube, or there are plenty of really reasonably priced ones online. If you go back to one of my episodes that I had on 5 things you can do today to start being creative, I mentioned taking a dance class, and I mentioned some great online resources for anyone who wants to start dancing. Dance with Miss Auti is a great one. I'll put that in the show notes. I love her, and she has some great resources, free resources for aspiring dancers, and some amazing classes that you can purchase as well on her app. So that's just another option, right? Is it acting? Do you want to search for a local audition and prepare for that, right? Whatever it is, take one small step. Okay, maybe those are too big. Okay, choose one song that you really love and start singing it, and just start working on it to grow your voice. Simple. Go back to my last episode a couple episodes ago, episode 60, on how to grow as a singer if you can't take private voice lessons. Go back to that and listen to it again. Do that. Do those things that I mentioned there if you want to grow, right? One small step, one small thing you can do towards using your creative gift today. That action taking is going to kill that imposter syndrome eventually. While you're in it, you're still going to feel it. You're still not going to feel sure of yourself. You're going to feel, but eventually the more action you take, the more your confidence grows, okay? The more your confidence will grow. And I talked about a few episodes back how to grow your confidence as an artist, as a performer. I need to reference all these things in the show notes because I've been making a lot of references, but go back to that episode. And I talked about taking action. That's really going to help, okay? So let's recap. 5 ways to combat imposter syndrome. 1, be real with yourself. 2, surrender. Give those fears to God. 3, check your circle. Who are you surrounded with? Are they encouraging or are they critics? 4, assess what you have. What have you done before that can help you now? And 5, take one small step. Take one small step towards using your creative gifts. I am right here cheering you on. I'm so excited to see how you use your gifts. If you want to share how you're using your gift this week, in fact, I would love for you to share that one small step you're going to do in my Facebook group. Go to the Facebook group. It's in the show notes, right? The Performing Arts Creative Community. I would love for you to go there and share one small thing you're doing. Or you can also share your step 4, right? The thing that you have done in the past that can help you now. Share that. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. If you can think of one person who could be inspired by this, share this with them so that they can overcome imposter syndrome too, and we can all keep creating. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Creatively by Estelle. I hope you feel encouraged by today's episode as you start this week. And if you have a moment, I would love for you to just share this episode with a friend if you liked it, or with someone who you think this could be encouraging to. It would really help this show. Also, if you really loved this episode, if you wouldn't mind going to Apple Podcasts and leaving a review and rating this show, it would really help us reach more people through this show and grow our Creatively community. All right, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.